Welcome to Trauma Undone. I am your host, Natasha Phillips, and today we have an amazing guest with us. This is Jimmy Bluff. He is just a healer beyond the healers, and we are going to be discussing how trauma sits in the body and how you can release it. Jimmy, we're so happy to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor. Whenever someone has an interest in talking about healing, like, hey, that's what I do for a living. So I love it. I love it. Thank you for having me.
So, Jimmy, I'd like to just get started with a little bit of background about you and how you came to be this incredible healer.
I tell you, it's been an interesting journey. From childhood, I was always very sensitive. Um, I lost my nana really young when I was 12, which really put me kind of in a tailspin spiritually. And I could always, feel people's emotions growing up. My mom had severe scoliosis, and as the middle child and the only son, I always just wanted to take away her pain, and I was always very, very hypersensitive. When my nana passed away, I was in sixth grade, and it affected me for actually many years until a shaman in my early 20s told me. She's like, oh, by the way, do you know this, and this happened? And I'm like, yeah, I do know this happened. How do you know that this happened? And she started to explain to me some of the gifts and things that at the time I didn't view as gifts with sensitivity, and then as I, got into college, my main goal was to become a physical therapist. So I took a detour after my first semester, went to Utah College of Massage Therapy, where I learned every modality, but also quickly learned like I'm never going to work in a spa. I went back to the University of Utah, and that's where at the same time I'd started managing a 24-hour fitness and really fell in love with fitness and fell in love with people coming in and getting them involved, and learned that I was very, very good at communicating with people. Um, Got to the top of that company, and here I was at 22 years old, like being asked to be the general manager of a facility that I would have dreamed of, before I was 35. So that's the route I went, only to realize in a couple of years that corporate America really wasn't for me. And it's always been a continual growth pattern of how can I assist people more. And I realized, managing a gym, I could only assist them so much, and then one-on-one personal training, I could be more one-on-one with people. But I also realized that a lot of people were in pain that I was training. So little by little, it went from being booked 70 hours a week with personal training clients, and then, really started kind of shifting in my early 20s to where my day was broken into half, to where so many people would come in pain. And then doctors would ask me, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just healing people. What do you mean? But with the way I was doing it was so unique that that became my passion and my focal point, because children coming in and seniors and war veterans and people that have just dealt with chronic pain, I kind of soon became known as a specialist, where I've had a lot of other doctors and a lot of other therapists like sending me their clients, and now I actually have a lot of healers as clients. um, it's been kind of a crazy progression over the years, but I always picked up patterns with trauma. And, as we discussed earlier, um, the body keeps the score. There's an actual book like that. And there's another book, um, Spiritual Anatomy, to where it explains spiritually what are you dealing with and where are you holding on to pain. And through many thousands and thousands of hours of training and hearing repetitive things, and then watching how people walk, and then questioning how are you sleeping, I just would continue to see these patterns continue rising in people. Um, and it became kind of my mission to just help remove pain and help return people's power back to them, because so many people have given away their power, and all of a sudden, through a traumatic accident or through a death of a loved one, or who knows what kind of traumas people could have endured, a lot of times you hold that trauma. And I've experienced this personally during sessions, um, A lot of clients, when especially when they feel safe enough, if I'm working an area that they've been holding on to some memory of the pain that's there, when I release it, they actually cry. And it's a beautiful thing. And um, some people have been holding on to trauma for 10 years, and at the same time they've been holding on to that trauma, they've been sleeping a certain way, and there's a certain pattern. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about it. um, and my goal is to kind of unlock the body's fascial tissue so people can not only fit better back in their bodies, but be able to move in a pain-free manner, like repatterning almost. They say that the body and the fascia can store emotions, and like I said, it's interesting. I wouldn't have agreed until there was a couple, power lifters I think I was working with over the years. And one of my celebrity clients admitted last week, when I got rid of one of his really extreme knots, and mind you, he thought he needed to have disc replacement surgery, it was so bad. But when I released the trigger point where all the muscles, had kind of interwoven, he started crying. And he's like, what was that? And he just felt a release. Well, it was connected to an emotional traumatic event that happened many years earlier that just showed up as pain. So as kind of a masculine man, I really take a lot of pride in being able to hold space, not only for a lot of women that have been through horrible trauma, but also men, and for both to be able to feel comfortable just being themselves and realizing, like, I'm not here to judge, I'm here to help heal. So some clients come in with all sorts of different traumas, and it's interesting. Sometimes it's very emotional based, very spiritual based, where they almost know that. And other times clients come in and I'm like, what are you here for? And I'm like, well, I don't know. And then by the end of the session, like, whoa, I really needed that. To where their intuition told them, I need to go see this guy, something's wrong. But when they came in, they couldn't necessarily pinpoint what was wrong. But then you hear, and I'm a big listener, I hear them talk, and they're talking about all the traumas they've experienced throughout the years. They're not talking about how happy they are and how beautiful their life is, and even though they have a beautiful life, it's like I hear these traumas and I hear this repetitive pattern of trauma. So, my goal is to provide a healthy, safe space and to get my clients the most amount of results with the least amount of discomfort. So they can just relax and melt on the table. And, part of what I do is channeling. So there'll be some times during a session where something will come to mind that I'll just say. And, it happened a few weeks ago. I was working on a client's hand. She had a finger issue, and I'm like, I have a client coming in to me for a finger. Why isn't she seeing an acupuncturist or something? And her husband's like, no, she's going to see you. And I looked at her and said, it's none of my business what's happening in your life. But a lot of times, this, and the tissue that you have in pain, a lot of times it's about control. And I said, I don't know if this means anything to you, but you can't control everyone around you. You can only control yourself. And if it's a child or if it's someone that you're trying to take that lesson from them, you're all going to have to learn new lessons, and then in the end they're going to have to learn that lesson again anyway. And she's like, oh, and I'm like, what? And right at that moment I almost felt like a glove come off and the muscle release that she'd been holding on to, right, or control in her hand. And she said to me, she goes, I just had a vision of myself dropping a sword. And I'm like, cool. Now mind you, I was just doing my thing. I had no idea what was going on in her life. I still don't. And she messaged me later that day and she goes, I cannot even begin to explain to you what transpired after our session. I just have to thank you. And I'm like, you're welcome. I have no idea what she was thanking me for, but I just said my truth and what I felt and did what I knew intuitively I had to do. And it's really neat because we all have traumas, but we also, um, not all of us have been taught how to receive love, right? Not all of us have been taught necessarily how to give love. So many of my clients come in and I actually thank them. I'm like, thank you for coming in. They're like, what do you mean? Because, like, you're probably the person taking care of everyone else in your life first, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, this is putting you first. So I get to meet these incredible human beings that like literally work until exhaustion trying to love and please everyone in their life. And to the point to where they're like a wreck. And then finally they come into me and I'm the tattooed big brother like, hey, you gonna love yourself a little bit more, mom? You know, and they're like, who are you? And I'm like, I'm the guy telling you you need more of this, or you need more meditation, or you need more mom time, you know, just to kind of reiterate to people boundaries and balance because, you know, we get burnt out so easy and life just comes at us so hard. Like, what are you going to do? You know, it just piles up. So, yeah, it's been a wild ride over the years. I was working with a lot of pro bodybuilders. I went to Brazil and had the opportunity to spend almost like 12 weeks with the indigenous throughout the entire pandemic. And my beautiful wife I met there, which gave me the opportunity to go back. And it was kind of like that Ram Dass movie, Becoming Nobody, you know, because I've got these rock stars, musicians reaching out in Hollywood, and next thing you know, like I can't even talk to people. I'm in Rio, no one knows who I am. So it was so humbling and so beautiful that coming back here, you know, now moving back here this year, back to LA, I can see things in such a different viewpoint, but also so much compassion for people like, whoa, you've been here the whole time? You know, and what we're used to in the city, we get up, we run, we grab our coffee, we go here. It's like go, 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 go. It's like, whoa, what are we doing to slow down and appreciate life and actually electrically ground ourselves? Because there's electricity and there's people throwing energy everywhere. So it's really been like kind of a catch 22, like, holy crap, this is the life I used to live, you know, and then you realize like, you know, like your last guest said, you know, the rock star life doesn't last very long, you know. So I learned myself, like I really had to start, you know, healing my own traumas, you know, the meditation and the time spent in the forest by yourself. We were just looking at a tree and like, man, that's a beautiful tree. You know, why haven't I noticed trees before? Right? So,
So, I mean, I have so many questions to ask you. So this is, I'm going to just start, and
yeah.
I'm sure it will lead to more questions, and I probably won't get to answer all the questions I have in my head right now. But being such an empath as you are, how do you not take on other people's trauma?
That has been a learning experience. You know, I've had to deal with my entire life. You know, I have certain exercises I do in the morning or certain visualizations I'll use during meditation, certain prayers. We use a lot of essential oils, you know, with protection. I sage myself and my clients before and after treatments, um, and really just being present, you know. But sometimes, you know, I find that I almost care about my clients sometimes more than my clients even care about themselves. So I've really had to instill new boundaries because um, in the past I'd take it home with me, where I'd just sit there and cry. But then I'd realize, like, how can I care about this client more than they're willing to care about themselves? You know, meaning I'm covered in sweat and my fingers are blistered and oh my God, you feel amazing. But then they go home and, you know, they don't take my advice and do the follow up with the foam rolling, the stretching, and all the things that they know are going to help them maintain a beautiful life. They just choose not to do. So that's also allowed me to unconditionally love my clients, but not um, take it personal, if you will. Because I used to take it personal. Why are you still in pain? You shouldn't be. Like, relax, Jimmy. You can only do what you can do. But it's very challenging to not take it home because I just have so much unconditional love for so many of my clients because sometimes I can see in them what they don't necessarily see in themselves, if that makes sense. My first business name was Truest Potential, and my goal was just bring out your truest potential. And all that means is sometimes like removing all these barriers and walls that we've put up because of the trauma and stress we've experienced in our life. So, yeah, I really have to stick to my daily routine, working out, meditating, to stay balanced and grounded for sure, and really try not to overstep my boundary with clients who, I have to remember they're just here for the hour. I'm gonna give them everything I can, and then some for this hour. But after that, I have to trust that they're going to continue loving themselves the same way or more at least than I showed them.
I mean, that's such a great lesson. Just that is like being able to give what you can and then know that you have to give to yourself.
Yeah. 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 And this is what I try to just empower people. Like, here's your power back. Like, I don't know who took it. Let's call it back. I don't know who broke your heart. Let's call all the pieces of your broken heart back, and put you first. Because I've had a lot of clients with negative self-talk, and I remember one of my clients, he had like 23-inch arms, and he was talking bad about himself, and I said, hey, I care about you so much, but I got to be honest, if I was saying these things to you that I'm listening to you say to yourself, you would hit me. But I care about you so much, so I can't be in your space and listen to what you're saying about yourself, because that's just not true. I freaking adore you. Don't you see? And he looked at me, he started crying, and he's like, it's like all I had to say was that for him to see, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Because as humans, we have such high expectations on ourselves, especially being in LA, being in major cities, it's go, 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 go. So, a lot of times you just have to show ourselves a little bit more love and compassion.
So you mentioned two books that I've read, and one, the Anatomy of the Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I read many, many years ago, thanks
Mm-hmm.
to my mother. But Body Keeps the Score was so impactful on my journey. So I want to talk a little bit more about how trauma is stored in the body and what
Mm-hmm.
we can do to release it.
Yeah. Yeah, there are so many things. There's breath work, right? There's yoga. There's just simply going to the gym, working out. Meditation. Maria, my wife, and I have done Art of Living. We've done two of their programs. The meditation was beautiful. I got my personal mantra. And then I've worked with Sadhguru. I did two of his
I
programs,
love him.
which was beautiful. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
And then recently, like, Joe Dispenza popped up on our radar, and like I'm really connecting with him. And it's interesting because most people just can't sit still for 20 minutes, right? It's hard. And when you force yourself to just be, and then breathing into your body, and even in a lot of these guided meditations, that's exactly what you're doing by being present and taking the time to realize I've got pain stored in my body. Why? And even recently, we got real serious back in the gym, because that's another thing. I have to continue to be strong so I can be strong for my clients. And I was like, wow, my body is really tight. It's almost like it was foreign to me because I was so checked out and so busy with work. I didn't even pay attention. How is my body feeling? Oh my gosh, the legs rotated. Oh my gosh, internally rotated bicep. Well, no wonder this hurts, And I think most of us don't have the time to just even look in the mirror and ask ourselves, like, how does my body feel? And I'm fortunate because I'm a professional in the industry, so I can only imagine, if you weren't in the healing industry, like, you wouldn't even realize your body was out of alignment. And that's what a lot of clients leave. They're like, I had no idea I was this bad. I'm like, well, you kind of did, but not this bad, because we're so busy most of the time trying to help everyone else, So I think daily self-care is a must. And I tell my clients, like, the first thing you do in the morning is have your routine and your pattern. That's all for you. Whether it's your affirmations, your, your meditation, and then setting intentions for your day. And just the fact that you're thinking about it is going to bring some healing into that, And there's so many sound bath healing, breath work, and then obviously down in Brazil, I was fortunate to work with the indigenous, and the thousands of years worth of technology, they call it, in the medicines in the forest is is just remarkable. There's so many ways to find healing. I think the biggest thing is so many people put too much pressure on it. And I've been working with the psychologist since I did an initiation in the forest. And I thought, nah, I never need someone to talk to. But I love talking to him. I don't know why I ever didn't before. And every so often, he'll just say something that will, like, I needed to hear that. As simply as, you ever think just because your heart is so big, that just leaves you open to getting hurt? Because most people's hearts aren't. And I'm like, holy crap. Yeah. Why should I have expectations on someone else to care about me as much as I care about them, even though we'd love for that to be real? But a lot of times in life, sometimes people just care about themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah.
So when somebody comes to you and they have experienced extreme trauma or like a prolonged trauma, because
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what we focus on here, is really
Mm-hmm.
that prolonged trauma that can produce, um, you know, trauma lock in your brain
Mm-hmm.
and in your body too.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you work with them? I want to ask you, it's a two-part question. How would you work with them? And while you're working with them, do they need to face that issue or face that problem in order to heal it? What do you
That's an interesting question. And it kind of makes me think of a client I helped in Tennessee. This woman walks in, and she was older. And I don't know if she ever worked. Her husband was very, very, very successful. And I started doing some healing, and she started to feel sick. And this very rarely ever happens, but she, had been abused from a very young child. And she started to dry heave. I'd work on a little area. She's like, I need a second. I'm like, you're fine. And then I'd cover her up. And this went on for almost 4 hours. And she looked over her shoulder at my wife and I, and my wife was using my feathers and saging her nonchalantly. And she's like, are you comfortable with this? And I was like, Mama, this is healing. This is what I'm here for. I'm like, you have no idea what I've personally experienced. But this healing goes as far as you take it. And she walked in and was looking at my tattoos, and I was joking with her during lunch, and I said to her, I'm the type of guy you look at and you judge and cross the street. But I go, who are you gonna call to battle your demons with you? This guy.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, she's like, can I come back Monday? My neck wants to work on you. And her therapist couldn't believe it, her female energy worker, because she never let anyone touch her neck. That's when she used to get thrown around. I felt so honored, one, that a woman in her 70s or whatever was going to allow someone other than her husband to actually get in her physical space, let alone a guy she was terrified of in the beginning. You know what I mean? But that's also what I love, being able to hold space for clients that have experienced so much trauma. I can feel it. I don't need to get into the specifics, but I can feel it. So my compassion, I want to heal everything. But the healing isn't about me. I'm just the in between. I'm not even the one doing the work the way I view it. I allow the work to be done through me on my client's benefit. So in my head, it's almost my clients that are the ones, their higher self is allowing source to work through me. So um, communicating, looking them in their eyes, understanding that they're heard, having them lay down on the table. Sometimes we use specific oils that are necessary to help ground their bodies. I like to smudge and sage. Um, I use a lot of energy work to just create a safe container. And then from there, depending on where they're holding tension in their body, it's more or less like, how much can my client relax to receive the healing? Because sometimes people show up like this, and I'm like, I need to relax, and they're like, oh my God, I don't know how to relax. So it's pretty wild. So through that experience, typically with me, a lot of times clients will leave and like, I feel so different. I'm like, okay, now that you feel different, I would love for you to do this to maintain the work. And if they're willing to do that, then all of a sudden, they start experiencing these day to day to day to day changes, if they're willing to do that. Otherwise, um, sometimes you need to come back more often.
I mean, I know that you don't, I just want to just make this clear. You don't only do trauma, you just heal people from like physical pain too, and you do so many amazing things, but I know we're focusing on the trauma here today.
Yeah.
Um, so do you find that in certain parts of the body is this certain types of trauma? Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I try not to get specific, even though in my head I know like different areas um, emotionally what are causing them. But if a client doesn't necessarily divulge that, I just I'll work the area, not explain to them. This is because your mom is putting too much pressure on you, and you haven't made the right decision. You know, it can be metaphysical anatomy. It can be very triggering. We had a woman, read about her son's scoliosis, and it was all about having an overbearing, superior. Da, 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 da. Just close it, put it down. So now I let my clients know, like we can look at, what could be emotionally triggering this if you want. Sometimes people just have no idea. But yeah, I mean, everyone has, especially everyone dealing with anxiety, with stress, right? We hold everything up here, and even our sleep patterns. So being able to release low back pain, being able to release, there's a lot of women I work with that experience a lot of pain in their abdomen, in their stomachs, obviously birth and a lot of women have had sexual traumas and different things, and we store a lot of our emotions in our psoas, our innermost abdominal. I remember I had mine released years ago from a friend who's a professional, and I called him the next day and I was just like, "What's going on, man? Why is there emotion?" He's like, "Bro, we just released your psoas, man. It stores all your emotions." I was like, I should know this. I was like, "What? This is real?" You know what I mean? So now with clients and my own experiences, because I've gone just the absolute depths of my own darkness to get to my own light to heal myself. So I can have so much compassion and a lot of times understanding why they're there. And if they want to share with me, wonderful. If they don't want to share, that's okay with me too. Because, everyone's safety and security is the most important thing for me. So I just love being able to be in a place with an individual who's just ready to heal. Because sometimes it's just that quick. Just like Tony Robbins always says, you can change your life, in a day. And he's right. And this is what I really reiterate to people because imagine like having, wearing a leather outfit that's 3 sizes too small. Why would you do that? Right? But half the people I work on every day are doing that, through sleep patterns or their hips out of alignment. They're just not fitting in their bodies to the point to where like they're just angry and uncomfortable. And recently I've been, coming across a lot of really angry people and it's, I understand in my head why they're angry is because, you're holding on to pain and probably pain that's not yours. But yeah, so I try not to point out necessarily, what emotionally might be creating that, but if the client opens up and starts talking about things, then I'll, hit it. But I don't like to hit people right here so much as allowing them. Because as an empath, you can freak people out sometimes. Just so you know, this, and this are going on. How do you know? You know what I mean? But when a client's ready to open up and talk about that, and then you can explain, well, you're doing this, and just so you know, I'm fixing this because of this.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, really? Yeah. But I try not, I used to go up and introduce myself to people in the gym. Hey, are you in pain? And then all of a sudden they'd get very defensive. And I realized like, oh, they weren't ready. You know what I mean? So now I view when a client's ready to remove their pain, like they'll find me because you can't beg someone to heal themselves. Like they will rebel.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful when someone comes in, they're just like, my friend said she came here, changed her life. I just need you. Okay, this
That
is
is
going to be easy. you
that is
know?
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jimmy, I know you chose to go right into your own darkness. you chose to go and look at everything so you could get through to the other side. Do you mind talking a little bit about like your the process of doing that? Was it conscious? Did you choose to go on that journey, or was that journey chosen for you?
I did choose to go on that journey. You know, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I went to this self-empowerment training for 3 days. I remember like the first thing I did for myself. And it's like the first day, they're just ripping you to pieces. Like just, it's just how their techniques were. And I kind of sat back and I could read everything that was happening. I'm like, they're doing this on purpose. And then the second day was even worse. They just knock you down and people would tell you how they felt about you and in front of your face. And they made you dance in front of people, stuff you'd never do. But I remember the third day just crying because I was happy. And then I went back to work and people were like, who are you? And that showed me, okay, you know, if I can change that much just by doing this, you know, then what could I do for people on a daily basis? And then it just kind of kept getting, you know, more and more intense. I'd meet a theta healer or an angelic healer, and they'd tell me all these things, and I was like, what the hell's going on? So certain people not only showed up on my path, but as a healer, you have to be open and, in my world, a clean container so that I can bring through the divine energy that I need to. So as a healer, I don't have a choice. Like I have to do that. And at the same time, by battling all my own demons and what I've experienced just by being a sensitive person and trusting people, I've lost everything 2 or 3 times in my life because of my heart. You know what I mean? And that's a good thing, but it's not. You know what I mean? Where I learned to set new boundaries, and actually, when I go into business with friends, I have a lawyer now. But um, I've, you know, I've been challenged emotionally to the point where it's like you either have to break down or you have to break through. And those times were the most beautiful times in my life, just like one of your rock star guests said, where, you know, you have no choice but to get yourself back up because you're already dead. You know what I mean? And next thing you know, you're on private jets and clients are flying in because, you know, it's like stress. What? Psh, I've been there. Yeah, let's help. Let's do this. Let's do this, this, and this. Because you've already battled it. You know what I mean? So it's just like running a mile in 4.5 minutes. Like if you've already done it, like you can show people how to do that. And throughout my life, you know, all the times I've suffered, um, instead of getting bitter, I always chose to get better. And whenever someone would break my heart, even a client, I remember so many times people just breaking my heart or abusing my time or just not caring. And I just like, wow, I'm going to love my next client so freaking hard. You're going to regret how you treated me in 5 years. You know what I mean? And I don't take that attitude now, but I always continued to improve myself, my abilities, you know, from every different aspect until pretty soon in my mid 20s, late 20s, like every aspect of my life involved my career because I have to be in a good mood, right? And I have to recover my body in time. And spiritually, I have to have a very strong spiritual practice because that's what I am for a living, and trying to direct people back, you know, to their spirit, not just this shell of a body and their ego, you know what I mean? But like really getting people to see who they are inside. Because I have people walk in like, sorry, I'm fat. I'm like, are you? You look great to me. I'm like, you realize you're like one of the most beautiful people I've ever met. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you don't see it? You're only looking on the outside. Like, I can see in your eyes. Like, you are so beautiful. Like, I have a retired teacher. It's just like from the moment I met her, you know, it's just so many people that have been carrying pain and discomfort and that have gone to so many doctors that they couldn't fix things. And they come to me and I'm like, yeah, it's this, and this, you know? So
Yeah.
it's been a journey.
So for somebody who's starting out on their journey, what do you, what do you, what are your tips? What do you recommend?
Be patient with yourself. You know, I joke with my clients when I work on their abs, like I'm talking to their inner child. And I'm like, hey, I get on their abs and I'm like, I love you. I care about you. I told you I'd be back. You know, and I remember a healer over the many years ago, she's like, she was trying to put me under and she's like, we're going to talk to your inner child. And I'm like, I don't care what he has to say. Just heal him. You know what I mean? And duh, guess where I needed healing. Um, have a normal routine, you know, and to me, whether you're following a program like Art of Living or Joe Dispenza or someone, if you don't know how to meditate, finding that, finding something that you're comfortable with doing on a daily basis, like meditation would be an incredible place to start. You know, for me, joining and going to the gym is necessary. Even if you go walk on a treadmill, you know what I mean? That's a beautiful place to start. Just getting out of bed and for 5 minutes thinking about what you're grateful for, you know, something so simple to me is the easiest way to start. And you don't need to go do some crazy medicine in the forest, but you could do a breathwork class. You could do a sound bowl healing. You could go for a walk on the beach. You could ground your feet in the ocean. So many things that we don't make time to do because we're so busy trying to take care of everyone else. You know, finding a group of people, you know, men's groups, women's groups. There's so many things out there that are available to us that we don't realize until we're actually looking for it, you know? So I think that's first and foremost, you know, not putting too much pressure on yourself. I need to heal. I need to heal. You are healing, right? And also making better choices with your food, right? What are we watching on TV? Are we spending too much time on media, you know, compared to reading a book that's going to improve you, listening to some motivational speech in the morning on YouTube or YouTube Red, you know, or a guided meditation? Like what we choose to do with our time can truly change our life. And even myself with my wife, I'm learning that. Instead of watching the news and being stressed out, it makes a complete difference when you have something on TV, you know, that's going to actually add to your life, not just stress you out, take you away from it. You know what I mean? And I think also being mindful of who you're surrounding yourself with. You know, are your friends in a healthy, positive mindset? Or are they inviting you to the bar? Well, maybe you're trying to quit drinking. You know, maybe you're trying to quit smoking and your friend's a smoker. You know, like I love you, but I need to go over here for a little while until I have more willpower. You know what I mean? Like setting yourself up to win, you know, and obviously as a personal trainer, I would like try to do monitor every aspect of my clients' lives, and then it got to a point, obviously, as a healer and a therapist, like my main focus is their pain, but I also take a look at like, have you had an X-ray done so that you know there's no impingement or any disc issues? Have you had blood work done so you can look at all your hormones and all your stress hormones and all your precursors? And to me, that's extremely important. So you know, like, why do I feel weird?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because there might be a reason to feel weird. You know, and getting having a nutritionist. We have a nutritionist that we see that explains to us how to eat with non-inflammatory foods. Like it's amazing if you just unconsciously eat what you want. I can guarantee, at least in my world, it's not going to be healthy. And if you watch TV, like again, you know, it's probably not going to be educational. But that's what we constantly feed ourselves, which is so wild. You know what I
It
mean?
is.
Yeah.
Jimmy, it has been such an honor. I wish I could speak to you all day. Just thank you. So,
Me
where
too.
can people find you?
JimmyBluff.com. You can go to my website. You can shoot me an email. I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook as well. But my website's the easiest, JimmyBluff.com. They can book themselves now. You can buy your family a healing that they can use to book themselves. We can set up a consult. Like I'm tired of seeing people in pain, especially when people are ready to do something about it. And I'm here.
Well, guys, it is, yeah, as you know, I absolutely love this man. I think he's incredible. I think he's an amazing healer. Definitely go and check him out. So I'm happy that you joined us on Trauma Undone today, where we really try to unpack the traumas of the past and heal from them. So, yeah, just join us next time. Jimmy, thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Yeah, hopefully I could say enough to at least, help people along their journey. But yeah, man, it's scary. But the thing of it is, people don't have to be scared of what you're becoming, and it's okay to fear doing the same thing, right? Because that's what makes us unhappy. But if you're unhappy and if you're in pain, that's probably just a suggestion your body's trying to give you. Maybe it's time to just start loving yourself a little bit more,